had this wonderful transition to something where we came out as two fully formed, like, budding artists who had the same goal. And my sister now is a freshman at USC. She's studying opera, and she lives like 10 minutes away from me. And she mostly spends a lot of time in my apartment, but that's okay, because we're very close now. I think without that 2-week period, I never would have been her friend. I just would have been like her older sister. So we got a gift out of COVID, which was quite a magical experience. And this summer, my sister is going to Tuscany, and she's in La Boheme. She was cast in La Boheme. So some 19-year-olds live the dream. But that's besides the point. All this is leading up to the fact that last year, after all of that occurred, and things started to get a little bit better with the pandemic, and things opened up a little bit more, I got the chance to work on a feature out in Sam Houston, the National Forest. And it was like a found footage, kind of Blair Witch style project, because I signed with Page Parks here, and I was getting a little bit of film work, and I was finally like coming to truth with my parents, because once we came out of quarantine, my sister like, she's like, I'm going to school for opera, and I'm like, I'm an actor. Like, this is what we're doing. Where is this going from? Well,
and then they threw you back in the room.
Yeah, they're like, get back in their room, socks under the door, be quiet. Yeah, no. Well, thankfully no. But it was a lot of, we still need to figure out how to prove to you guys, we need to talk about it, figure out that, you have to like proof in the pudding situation. So I get this role, I'm playing a biologist, which is great, because I'm like, I'm gonna go method, I know things about biology. And it's, which is kind of convenient, because I do. And so I'm on set for this project, and then we're shooting overnights in the Sam Houston National Forest in the summer here in Texas, which is just basically hell on earth, because they're getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, there's mud everywhere, a truck breaks down, like so many things are going wrong on set. Basically, the behind the scenes could have been a horror movie itself, but that's what was going on. And for me, it was just magical, right? This is my first feature that I have a lead part in, and I'm like, this is so fun. I don't care how many bugs eat me alive, I don't care if it's 1,000 degrees outside, this is the best. And during some of my breaks, during those overnights, my character had a journal, and I'd just be like sitting on wood outside, like by myself with the mosquitoes, and I'd be like, that was so interesting that period of time I was with my sister. I'm gonna like write about it. So I would like write some little things about it, writing about it, and that I had 6 weeks of principal, which that's too long for a feature, but that was indie feature, great time. Things happen and a lot of rescheduling for rain because we shot in May, so there was a lot of rain. But I started writing about this time that me and my sister were in COVID together, in quarantine, and then things finally eased up. I worked at Starbucks that whole period I was in the pandemic, woke up like every day at 5:30, went to Starbucks for 5 hours, and I was saving up money because I'm like, I'm moving to LA. And that's what I kept telling my parents. I was like, as soon as I have enough money, I'm moving to LA. And I'm like, okay, sure. And then sure enough, like it was June, I'm moving to LA. So I moved to LA, didn't really have a fully realized plan for it. I'm like, I'm gonna go. My parents are like, do you have an agent? Like, do you know people? I'm like, you don't know how it works, Mom. Like, I have the plan in my mind. Like, I have to just go. So I just moved there, and that can be we can open up a lot of questions about that. That's fine, because a lot of people, it's like, when's the right time? And like, for me, it was just, I just gotta go, because I had this plan to move before, so I already felt very delayed, but I went. And then while I was there, I had this weird thing where I lived on the west side. If anyone's familiar with LA at all, the traffic is heinous. And so my sister lived downtown, because that's where USC is, and you can be 10 miles away from someone, and it takes you an hour and a half to get there. Like, you might as well get out of your car and walk, and you can't get mad about it because you've done it to yourself, so don't get mad. But like, you're sitting I was on the west side, my acting studio was downtown, my sister's downtown. So I spent so much time going early and avoiding traffic, and then I would sit at a cafe for like 2 or 3 hours, and I just started writing. So I realized that this story that I had, I wanted to like breathe more life into it. I wanted to expand it, and I've never been a writer. I've never considered myself a writer. I loved writing in high school and in college too. I actually like took a couple English classes just for fun, which ended up counting for my theater minor, because the only reason I was able to do the theater minor, they're like, you took this upper level English Shakespeare class. Like, why? Because I like to write. Well, that counts for your minor. So I was writing, and then from August to December, I ended up writing a full feature and 5 shorts. One of the shorts was the one I wrote about me and my sister, and then I had several others about experiences in college, one from my childhood, and then I wrote a full feature about, I grew up in France, so about my period of time living in France. And I had this short, and then in February, I had a table read of my feature, and I had a Q&A afterwards, which, just side note, whenever you have a Q&A for a piece of writing, go into it with the intention of what you want out of the Q&A, because I just told people, I was like, I want a Q&A on my work, and people just ripped it to shreds, which I think everyone wanted to give it their like honest feedback, and then it became this like, everyone needs to say something, and they're all just like piling on top of each other. And I think a lot of people maybe didn't even have anything to say. They were just like, oh, I need to say something because she like wants something from it because it's a Q&A. And I was like, I feel like personally attacked. And I didn't think people meant to do that. But especially since it was like my own true story and personal experience, I need to establish what the Q&As are for. So that's a side. But I had this Q&A, and then I realized to myself, what I really wanted so badly was to understand how to create my own project and see it fully realized from start to finish. And I kept saying this to people, I'm like, how do you do this? Asking people, like, how do you do this? Like, the way you do it is you have to just start. There's no way to do it. There's no person who's gonna tell you how to do it. You have to just sit down, you have to have something to say, and you have to write it. It doesn't matter what format you put it in. You don't need a format. You can figure that out later. Like, someone can give you final draft. Like, you can write in Celtics. It doesn't matter. First of all, I was writing in notebooks. I was physically writing it down. Then I was writing things on Google Drive. And then finally, when I started having people read it, they're like, I don't have scene headings here. I don't know line numbers. Like, do you have a final draft? I'm like, I don't know what that is. So I get on like YouTube, Google, what is final draft? And my sister gives me her student version of Final Draft because she's at USC, and all her little film school friends were like, oh, we have the cheaper version. That's great. So start figuring out how to use Final Draft. It's impossible for the first like 2 months because there's all these shortcuts. You're like, this is way worse. I just want to write it by hand. It's easy to get the hang of it. Just ask a lot of people. I think the thing that I found the most about writing is if you think there's some prescriptive way to do it, that's the only mistake you'll ever make. You just need to do it, and then go in later and be like, okay, now I have to add scene headings. And if you don't want to do that, you don't know how to do it, I bet money there's someone around you that does know how to do it, and they'll want to do it because they want to read your writing. That's the thing that I started doing. I'd be like, oh, so you're a script editor, you've seen a lot of scripts, like, do you want to just take a glance at mine, like go in and maybe see the scene headings and people, and if they want to read it, they'll do it. And a lot of people in LA are very willing to read your work because they want to see if it's good, and then you just have to trust the person, you know. So I had a lot of people in my acting class who were very gracious enough to do that for me. But all to say is I then realized I wasn't going to do that with my feature in the moment. I was like, I'm going to table that for now because I can't make a feature from start to finish. It's like me as someone who's never produced my own film. I'm an actor primarily. Well, was neuroscience, now actor. Like, I can't make a feature right now because the gravity of it seemed too large to do it to the degree that I wanted it done. Like, this is something in the future I will do, but I don't know how to do it right now. So like, I want to make a short. I want to figure out how to do a short, and I think I can make a short. And I was like, what shorts do I have? What story am I trying to tell? And I had this short about this period of time with me and my sister in COVID. And I had already shot a little bit of it, like kind of scenes just for real, the summer before when I was here in Houston. Because I just asked a couple friends who had cameras, and then I asked one of my friends who was actually on that feature, the one that I shot in the National Forest. I asked her if she would practice, rehearse, do some lines, and just read it for me, just to hear the dialogue. So I already had what we would consider like a sizzle reel for it. So then when I was out in LA, I sent it to a couple people to see if they were interested and to see if the concept struck with them. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I'm gonna make this short. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna figure out how to do it, and I'm just gonna make the timeline. I'm gonna find the people, and I'm gonna make it work. And it was in about January. I'm like, in May, we're shooting this short. I don't know what's gonna go on, but I know that's gonna happen. And then I was like, what's my first thing I need to do? Well, I don't know how to raise money. I don't know how to submit to festivals. I don't really know any of the words. I don't know any of the jargon. I don't know the process of it. I'm like, I know how to act, and I know how to write, and I know I have something to say. So what's the best way to go about this? I'm like, well, I need someone who knows those things. So I started asking around my acting class. I'm like, who knows someone who knows these things? Like, who knows a guy who knows a guy? And then a guy in my acting class knew a guy, Connor. Connor's my guy. Connor's my producer. And then I basically just met Connor for coffee, and I pitched my idea to Connor. Connor was like, I like it, I'm assuming. And then here we are. And that was in like January. Yeah. Beginning of the year. And I was very like big picture talking, like, this is what we're gonna do, this is what it's about. And Connor's like, And then I'm like, I don't know anything about money or like where we're gonna get it from. But I'm like, I know that we're gonna do this, and this is what I have to say, and the script is sort of done, and it will go through probably many edits, and that doesn't matter right now. All I know is like, this is happening, and we're shooting it today. And he's like, okay. And so then we started assembling a team. It was kind of like that. It was like, who's gonna direct it? Like, I don't know. Then I just started thinking about who are directors I've worked with. If you've never worked with any directors, who are actors you know, who are directors that they like? Who are people that you know who can get on the stage and read it for you? I think something that I wish I had learned earlier in my filmmaking process is I really needed to hear my own writing out loud in a workable way without any expectations. Because when I was doing script editing later in the process, my director, she's wonderful, but she helped me with a little bit of the writing and the dialogue fluency later on. She was like, you need to get people on stage reading the lines who have no connection to the project, who are cold reading, basically. And you just need to do that over and over and over to see how it flows, to see where things disconnect. And so you're kind of like a third person, like omnipresent listener. And then kind of just have a pen, have your paper, just be like, oh, that word sounds strange. Or like, this is sticking out, like, ooh, that should be a comma, just things like that. And I think as far as like dialogue edits, that's much more informative than having like a session than a Q&A, because in that moment, like, you're the person who's the like out of body person experiencing it. Because I did it a couple times, and I just sat with my eyes closed and had my actors just read it, and I was like really listening to my piece for the first time. So that is a thing that I would say. And then in the past, let's see, I started Zooming with my director in about March. And my director found me my DP, and then my DP found me on my crew, and then we didn't do open call for auditions for the other actors. We reached out to agencies and just got like tapes from there, and I watched tapes, which was very humbling. I've never like cast anything before, and now as an actor, I feel like less sad now that I've like cast something, because there were so many girls that I watched that I was like, this girl is wonderfully talented. I absolutely love her, but it's not the character I wrote. And there's nothing against her. It's just like so many CJs must watch me and say, oh my gosh, she's fabulous, but that's not it. And it's nothing against you, and I didn't let those girls know. And I'm always endlessly angry that like, oh, they don't even let you know. I'm like, well, I didn't let them know, so I guess I'm part of the problem now. So yeah, cast the other actress, and then we just shot today at my high school alma mater, which I didn't even do theater in high school. I was an athlete, weirdly. But we just shot there, and he let us shoot there for free, which was so kind. I think something I've learned on this process as a producer is that sometimes you just gotta ask. You just gotta ask people. I think as a filmmaker, we're always thinking that no one wants to help us, or that no one actually wants to listen to what we have to say or to read our work. But people are so curious about what creatives are doing. We have so much to give, and it's just the voice that people want to listen to, because we're the interesting part of society. Everyone's like, what's going on with those creative people? What are they doing? So when I reached out to him, he wanted to help like with open arms, and I was almost like, what do you want from me? There's always this like, what's your rate? It's like, well, it's free. I'm like, it's free, but he wanted a couple of his students to get credit on it and to help us out. So he wanted to give us free work.
What's your alma mater?
The Woodlands High School. Woodlands High School. Yeah, it's a great high school, wonderful theater department, and beautiful theater, which I only really went in for speeches and for graduation. So, and one talent show. I did do a talent show there when I was a sophomore. But we had our first day of principal today. We have 3 more days in my house, because I asked my parents, and they're very graciously involved. My mother's in charge of craft services. Beth is the chef. And yes, I know. And my sister's singing all the music, which I'm very excited about. And yeah, it's a family affair, which I never thought that I'd have my family involved in film. But honestly, once I brought them in, it's like I was able to become fully realized. It was when I was shutting them out that I was like keeping part of myself away, and ultimately they're part of it too. So that's my film journey so far, because we're still shooting, and then we've kind of figured out our post a little bit. I can talk a little bit about that. So back in about March, we applied for fiscal sponsorship with a couple different grants, like probably like 5 grants. and we didn't hear back from most of them. And then about 6 weeks ago, we heard back from one organization, and they said that we didn't win the grant, but they were interested in fiscally sponsoring us for post-production. So they're helping us with all of our post-production and like helping us get distribution and the festival run. So that's like apply to grants. There are so many grants out there, and I know it's annoying. It's like the college application process, but yeah, it's really cool. But in general, if you write the same like versions of your pitch in different tones, you can like cut and paste things from there. You just have to be like get into the literature. It's the worst thing ever because you never want to sell yourself and you never want to talk about yourself. So all of those things are like, oh, it's a waste of time, but it's not, because if you believe in your work and you believe in like getting other people involved in your work, it's like me denying my family into my life. It's like that's the most humbling thing in the world, is to actually be proud of your own work. It's very hard, and trying to pitch yourself to grants is that in a nutshell. It's like, why are you qualified? And you're like, well, I'm not, I'm the worst. You actually have to tell people why you're qualified, which of course you are. You just have to say it in an articulate way. It's like the writer is brilliant in every way until they actually have to like put it into a paragraph and pitch themselves, which how is that the most difficult? You can write a 100-page screenplay, but you can't write a one paragraph. Why are you qualified? I don't know. But yes, apply for grants. And then, yeah, I guess I'm going to be editing for the first time. I'm going to be involved in the editing process. Don't even know what that's going to look like, but that's going to be another fun thing. Have no idea. And I think this whole process for me has been like, I don't care how dumb I come off, I just want to ask questions. I'm like, you're a DP, what do you do? Like, you're a gaffer, what's that? Like, because when you're an actor on set, it's like they expect you to be isolated and do your own thing. No one wants to tell you anything, and they want to just treat you as like, oh, go in your dressing room, do your thing. But if you make your own project, which of course you can and you should, you can be as involved or as not involved as you want to be, because it's your project and it's your vision. So I guess my advice and what I want to say is that just do it. There's no reason to not do it. Do it right now. Don't feel pressured to do it, but just do it. There's no way to do it. There's no form to it. Just write, just act, just write a monologue and perform it, put it on tape, and send it to a casting director. I think something that I learned early on that was really helpful, every time I auditioned, or something, if you're blind submitting on Backstage, for example, or on Actors Access, I don't like cattle call submission or submit myself. I find projects I'm looking for, I research, I'll be looking for other things, I find what interests me. Then I'll look up the director, I'll look up all the work that they've done, I'll watch some stuff. Like I'll spend a whole evening on one project I'm interested in. And then I'll think of the bullet points of like, what's interesting about this director? What's interesting about their work? I like to treat them as like job interviews. Because if I'm going to submit to someone's job, I want to show that I know something about it. And then every time I submit to a project, I ask them questions about it. I ask if I can always ask if you can read the full script. So I'm like, if I'm going to audition for a character, I need to know what's going on. And most filmmakers and writers like want to share their work. And if an actor's super interested, you're like, oh my gosh, they actually care about my work. Which, like, as a writer, I love when actors ask for my work. The actresses I interviewed or auditioned, only about 5 out of the 30 we saw asked for the script. And the one that we cast asked for the script. And she knew everything about the character. And I was like, because I think she cares about the project. So that ultimately matters. I could tell that she wasn't just blindly submitting randomly, right? So that's something I've definitely learned. And then I know this is annoying, but one of the big networking things I've learned is that, so I have an Excel, and it's the science part of me, because the science brain has to have the Excel. But I have an Excel of like all the casting directors I've ever met, and like in what circumstance I've ever met them, and I have it in alphabetical order. And I have a casting directors one, I have a directors one, and I have just like a general people one. And so, because names come up and like people come, and it's impossible to keep track, right? And then, you know, if you've shot something great, or if you've written something and you have someone you're trying to like get in with, because you know, you might have a show that's like your dream show. Like, oh, I really want to get cast on Euphoria. It's my dream show. Well, who's the casting director of Euphoria? Who's the director of Euphoria? What season are they working on? Can I blind submit to them? If not, can you blind submit to them? Like, okay, which actors are on the show? Which agent do they work for? Like, can I send them a little update every once in a while and say, I just shot this amazing thing. Here's some footage from it. I hope you have a nice Memorial Day weekend. Or here's a project I just wrote. Like, here's a couple pages from it if you have some time to give it a glance. Or we met at this fundraiser one time. We talked about this. So-and-so, I hope your dog is doing great. Just a little tiny personal things, just once in a while. Doesn't matter if you get a response. Just like keep yourself in other people's minds. Sprinkle it in. That's the annoying networking thing, I would say. And then, what else? I think I'll open it up to questions. It's 18 pages, so well, probably about 18 minutes. We'll see after edits.
Is this the one about about the pandemic? I have a few questions. I don't want to hog the floor, but it's a few questions that they're a little granular about. You said that you just started, and so I don't remember all the details. I know that you said you met with Jordan? Connor. And you all just like you got this director, and then you got the DP, and the DP got the. How did you pay for all that? I know you said you got grants. Did you have to pay for things up front?
Yeah, we actually did an Indiegogo fundraiser for pre-production, and we raised $70,000 from the Indiegogo. Yeah.
I mean, was that is that friends and family network?
It's friends and family, and like a lot of actor friends, a couple of directors I've worked with, a little bit of networking, but mainly just friends and family and social media. Yes, we're in the midst of like hiring a social media person, and Connor and I are so excited because social media, as we all know, is the bane of our existence, but it's a necessary evil that we all must take very seriously. But yes, Indiegogo.
And then the actors that you hired, were they SAG actors? Were they or were they were non?
No, she's non-union. It's just me and one other actress. And initially we were going to go SAG. We actually looked into that process fully, and that was something I wanted to do because I wanted to understand the SAG process and how to get affiliated with SAG and everything that went into that. And with the budget that we were working with, and with COVID protocol, that was going to eat up so much of our budget that we'd rather that go towards crew and stay non-union. Since the talent we were looking at, it was a mix of SAG and non-union, but we loved enough non-union people that it still made sense. And shooting out here in Texas, you can really get away with non-union, and it's still great because the work and the crew that you get are so good. Whereas if you're in LA, like you kind of have to go SAG if you want to do the same, and everyone is SAG, so you kind of have to do that. But absolutely, yeah, non-union.
I know when you started talking about writing your feature, I guess maybe go a little bit more into the process of that. How did you go about writing it? Did you get it evaluated? Did you get, like you said, did you talk to, I know you said you talked to other people in terms of script doctoring or development or consulting or things like that. Who did you talk to in terms of learning basically between writing a short and writing a feature?
Yes. So in March of last year, I was in this open air theater show in Dallas. Actually, right before I came back to Houston and worked with Leslie. And during that period of time, I was Zoom auditioning, and I got this one audition for this really cool French film that I was really excited about because so I speak French. And I did auditions, callbacks, second round callbacks, and then I had to fly out and do screen tests. And I thought I was gonna get this part. I was like, I'm getting this part. Didn't get it. But the script, I had asked for the script from the job because the sides I got were so brilliantly written. I was like, this is a great script. I need to figure out what's going on. And this writer, he lives in Michigan, and he is a writer. He's had like films in Cannes. He's at South by Southwest, like very good writer. I was like, oh my god, this guy's great. I want to learn from this guy. And after I didn't get the part, I like pulled him aside. I was like, is there any way that you would just help me write? Like, I think you're a phenomenal writer, and I would love to emulate your work. I think we see things similarly. Is there any way, like down the line, you would like be willing to mentor me in little ways, like whenever you have time? And he was absolutely willing to do it. So when I started working on my feature over the summer and really like getting something solid, because at that point I was just dabbling, then like I got to like a solid draft of like 98 pages, sent it to him, and he read it, and then we started like Zoom sessions basically. And for like once a month for like 8 months, he was helping me, and then he started sending me early drafts of some of his work, and he was like, why don't you take a look at this, and you can give me comments, and like, so I kind of found like a writing buddy, basically. It was very, very cool, and it was awesome, and he was one of the few people that's actually read the full script, and one of the few people I trust, because I also think that when you're developing a work, something especially that's a true story, or something close to you that you really resonate with, be careful if you read it in early stages, because it needs to be someone that you really trust, and someone that, if you want feedback, it's going to give you honest feedback. Because also you don't need to just feel like everyone needs to read your work all the time. When it's, in early stages, that's how I feel. So I feel like I found someone who was a mentor and helped me grow. So I got to a point when I felt comfortable with the script, and then I moved to LA and was like really working on it, getting it like materialized. And my acting teacher, I mentioned it one time in class, and they were all like, "You've written a feature, like we need to read it." Whoa. So then they wanted a table read, and then I had a group of actors who were like, "Let's do a table read." And I had an audience, and I was sitting in the front, very, very uncomfortable, like in the middle as director, and I was like, hardly even knew these people, and I'm like listening to out loud, reliving childhood trauma. I was like, this is just not it. And then had the Q&A, the very traumatic Q&A, and then I was like, not doing that again. So then I tabled the feature for a minute, but the script is basically done. And I had one other writer that I have worked with who I let read it, and was like, this is basically done, and like you could submit this to places, but I'm not at the place where I'm trying to do that because I wanted the experience of doing the short first. And that was because actually in December, I signed with an agent in the UK. So my chief representation is in the UK, and they submit me
Writing agent or acting agent?
Acting and writing both.
Oh, okay.
They're based in the UK, and they submit me in LA and New York. But this feature shoots on location in France. So I wanted international representation to start getting me connections with international filmmakers. So that was like, that's what I pitched to her when I signed. I was like, I have this feature, I have these people I've been writing and working with, and I want to shoot this in France. And she's like, that sounds crazy. Kind of when I was talking to Connor, he's like, that makes no sense. But I told her that, and she's like, that's interesting. Like, do you have a plan for that? I'm like, loosely, yes, sort of. She's like, in 2027, I will shoot this feature. Okay. But that's kind of my plan for the future. And in doing the short, I kind of occasionally mention it, which is something I think is that's my main tactic in life. Just occasionally mention it, and someone will go, yeah, I know a DP that works in France. I'm like, oh, great, what's their name? And write it down, and you're like, here's their email. And I'll shoot them, like, oh, I know so-and-so from my set. They refer me to you, and you live here, and this is what I want to do. And then this person and this person.
Thanks for the reason I said I'm also a screenwriter. I work with writers developing their stories. I also do coverage for Coverfly. I'm here at Coverfly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do script analysis for Coverfly, and basically one of my missions in life is to help people write better scripts so I can stop reading bad ones.
Yes.
So what did your sister say about when she read it?
About my sister?
Yeah.
She really likes it, and it's been a really funny, lovely relationship. Because initially, I was like, you should play yourself. You should do it. And she's like, I'm not. I was like, okay. So this was probably in like January when I was like, I'm really gonna do this. I'm gonna do this thing. And she's like, you can't shoot it in my room. It's my room. I was like, all right. And then as things started rolling, and I was like, hey mom, dad, like, we have like a crew with like a whole thing, and they're like, oh, you're gonna shoot a movie, like you're shooting a movie in her room, like good luck getting her to let you use her room. I was like, okay, well we have like 15 people I've hired, and there's like a whole budget, like a real thing that we're doing here. And then now she's graciously let us use her room, which has been a real problem. In the past week, she's like, how long are you gonna be in? I'm like, Maddie, you help me decide the dates. You know exactly how long I'm gonna be in there. Like, you've been part of this. And then about 3 days ago, when I had my lead actress for rehearsals, we had 2 days of rehearsals. My sister afterwards literally pulls me aside and was like, so you should make a short that like I could be in, like something I yes, that makes sense. So she feels like my sister. That's how she feels. And she's very excited to sing the music because she's gonna get to have that. I told her for her reel, and she's like, I don't need a reel. I'm like, we're still getting there with her. She's like, I don't need that. We'll get there.
So I've had people say that to me before, and you mentioned for some reason I feel like, otherwise I feel some paranoid. Like, I don't know what was your script. So what's sort of the intention behind that? Is it because people can sort of just lift your work, or what's the reason behind that? Not being careful who reads your script.
Yes. I don't ever think of it through that lens because I think creativity can't be stolen. Like if you create something and someone takes your idea, you are ultimately the creative. So no one can steal your own unique lens of creativity. That's impossible. So you can just create one. Like if someone wants to steal your idea, also no one can take your personal experience. So that's not possible. So I never feel about it from that lens, but more like in the way that I work. I think it's also the actor part of me. You know, there's some amount of vulnerability in writing. I think I get in the same flux and flow in acting as I do in writing, and that's part of the reason it's so intoxicating. I love that feeling of flow when I'm writing, and it's like you're just so pulled in and you're just stuck in it. And I think sometimes if you let someone else into that, it can disrupt it in a way that's not productive. If it's too early, if it's not realized. It's like if you were rehearsing a play and you let some like random person from the street come in and watch. It's like, I don't know how you're contributing to this, and I don't know if I need your feedback on like my opinion, or if like you were rehearsing with another actor, and they gave you notes on your performance. It's like, that's not your place, actually. You're not the director, you're not the executive producer, I don't need you to give me acting notes. So I think that's where it sits for me in my creative mind. Yeah, but it's totally different person to person. I know a lot of actors, writers they start sending it out to everyone as soon as possible, they want feedback, which is perfectly valid. That's just not currently what I'm doing.
Also, so you said that you didn't even sort of study film. So did you take any classes, any courses? You just, could you talk a little bit about that? Any courses or classes?
Yes, I've taken several on-camera classes. I actually took a year at the Berkeley Rep in Berkeley, and I love that it was on-camera class and then film. And in my theater minor, I did take a couple film classes, but more on just like the history of film. And then we got to do like one camera class, but it was pretty beginner. So basically just like knowing your way around a camera kind of stuff, and like terminology, which I found not overly applicable because everyone shoots on a different camera and things are so fast moving, and also I'm not trying to be a DP really, and I found that most experience comes better from set. But then beyond that, I've always had a private acting coach most of the time, or I'm in an acting class. I've never taken a screenwriting class.
Because I'm taking one right now, and I had a friend who's a writer, and he just sort of said this to me, and I wanted to get yourself but you never take no class. But they give you certain tools, right, to develop your treatment, and there's some of the tools that I find a bit frustrating, or just kind of a bit, I don't know what the right word is, but not.
Anyway. Yeah.
How prevalent is virtual auditioning as opposed to in-person auditioning?
Which is quite prevalent. Well, okay, I'll say this. It depends on the type of audition that you're doing, and depends on the casting director, but it's really prevalent. I'd say it's like 80-20 virtual auditions to in-person. Well, and it'd be virtual, and then callbacks are often in person. If it's theatrical, if it's commercial, it depends. Often it's like direct booking from virtual because they just can't be bothered, which I get. Because if it's like what if you have no lines and you're just this random person on an Intel commercial, it's like, oh my gosh, wow, like I'm typing. Like, yeah, they don't need to call you in. It's a waste of everyone's time. And they can do it so much faster now. So that's happened. But if it's really like a big, meaty theatrical role, they still call you. Yeah, they still call you in, they still do callbacks and screen tests. That's still occurring. So it depends on the nature of it and what they need. I mean, I was zooming in for the callbacks for my own project. I was in LA and they have everyone's out in Houston. And I was like, watching, hi, this way. And like, it worked totally fine. It was just a little weird. I mean, I wish I had big here, but yeah, it's on and off. But ultimately, I don't think it's going back. I really don't. But ultimately it allows flexibility. Like I'm represented in the UK, and I get to read for like Bridgerton. Like that's cool. That's awesome. Like I don't need to fly out to the UK for like a 20-minute slot. I could, but that'd be a real waste of everyone's time. I think they might give it to me, but like, you know.
I can see with the virtual audition would be extremely versatile.
Yes.
Like you can audition for a lot of things.
Well, and from anywhere.
Exactly.
Like really from anywhere. That's why I carry my kit with me all the time, and I'm just like in the closet, like, hello. Like, it doesn't matter. You just have your little ring light. You look the same no matter where you are. You're in a Starbucks bathroom, you're in my bedroom. Like, doesn't matter.
But at the same time, when you walk into the room, you look at the people that are in the room. You have the director, they have the producer, you have the casting director, and you have somebody in the corner, you don't know who they are. And then you can take control of that situation. You can either give them what you think they need, or you can show them what they need. And, it's,
In person,
yes, in person, when you're in person, it's, that's an acting job right there on the spot.
It's true.
And, the in-person auditioning is, it's personally gratifying.
It is really nice, but I would say there's an art to the self-tape, and it's really important to learn it because as an actor, you don't get a choice. So you might as well get good at both. Because when you're in the room, you get the advantage of being able to romance the room, but when you're on tape, you get infinite takes, and you can do so many cool things with the camera. And you're on camera, and that's what you should be practicing. So on-camera classes are like a really good thing to take in practice. I mean, I feel like I really learned my self-tape game because when I was first starting, probably like a year and a half ago, I'm like, where do I look? What am I doing? Oh, there's so many actions. Am I supposed to do them? Like, where am I? And I'm like so like washed out. Like, and now it's like, okay, there's 3 different scenes that I'm supposed to do. I can do costume changes. I can have my hair in different ways. I can show them like versatility in this tiny little thing that they're not going to get to see in person. And I can show them, I can look all these different ways, and I have like different levels to me, and I can, maybe I'll throw in a line in a different language, or maybe I'll do an accent, or like, there's so many things you can throw in, and I'm like, if I've read the script, I'm like, oh, my character does this arc, and I can put it in this tiny little 35-second audition, but I wouldn't be able to do it in person. So there are advantages and disadvantages. Also get good at iMovie editing because it's important.
Okay, well, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I've been thinking, so I'm new here, new to the area. I'm new to getting involved with the arts and stuff. Ever since I've moved down here, I've just been in love and passion for film and like what happens like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So my question is, I've seen this project that I want to get attached to, but I think like the casting stuff is done. They hired all the crew and stuff. So I was thinking about emailing possibly to volunteer, so I could kind of, you know, learn the ropes, since I kind of don't, I've been on film sets before, but like as an extra, you know, so now I'm really trying to learn like what goes on behind the scenes now.
100%.
And so like, would it be, I don't know, should I volunteer?
Yeah, just email and ask if they need
Just-
PAs. So you'd love to volunteer and learn about behind the scenes work and people in town, and that you love their project and why you identify with it, and absolutely. So, like, and if they say they're busy and that they don't have any space, be like, do you have any projects lined up down the line? Or like, I would love to work with you at some point. I would do that today. Yeah. Yeah, I would absolutely do that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I got a lot of my PAs. They're volunteers. They're just like, I want experience. I want behind the scenes work.
Yeah.
And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. Let's go. It's like, a lot of them make it. And they're great. They're very endearing.
Did you set deadlines for yourself? Originally,
Do I set
you just-
deadlines?
Did you originally set deadlines for yourself, or did you just write and then it just kind of, the deadline?
Oh, for writing?
Well, for this project.
For this project, I set May as a deadline, or as like a, this is what I think I'm shooting. And Corona was like, well, that can be flexible, and I was like, it's May. Well, be flexible. And then as things moved, as things got closer, we're like, it can move. And I was like, it's May. And then we're like, okay, maybe it'll move. And then we're like, it could be May. So like, I set deadlines because I'm like, it has to be by this date. Because I'm like, I'll get this done, I'll get this done. And then you like experience what it's like, see how much work has to go into that short period of time. And then as it came up to like a month before, we're like, we need to push the dates. And I'm like, actually, we could probably get it done. And then, so it's like, I set the deadlines for myself inside, and then like, in reality, they're flexible, but I set them for myself. That's like each week, I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do artistically for myself this week. I'm not gonna like write it down or make goals or deadlines, or because that stuff, that's like moving to LA and being like, I have a 5-year deadline, and at the end of that 5 years, I'm gonna like explode and turn into a business person if I don't do this, you know? Like, you can't do that because everyone's journey is very predictable and different, so, but you can do the like, okay, maybe today I should do one thing artistically for myself, and I should spend only that time doing that thing and think about nothing else, and then I have succeeded, and that's your deadline.
I always wanted, because you mentioned like submitting to festivals and things like that, so I didn't know if you had like a.
Yes, so those have
calendar.
deadlines.
You're right. So
Those
like-
have deadlines.
And even the
And that's why you have
grants,
a Connor.
right? So yeah, so like, I didn't know like if you had like a calendar of like, okay, the grant is due.
It's a Google Drive, and yes, we do. And
You
it
said
has this.
Excel, you said Excel, so I was.
Oh yes, there's an Excel and there's a Google Drive. There's a Google Drive with spreadsheets that are on Excel. It's But yeah, there's all these deadlines and all these different dates, and we were very good about it early on with all the grants, applying on time and getting things done. And it'd be like the night before, and I'm like, but yeah. Yes, deadlines for those things, certain deadlines you cannot change, obviously.
Right, okay.
Very, very.
I think, you said earlier, that there was some company that asked or something that they wanted to help you with submitting to festivals.
Oh, we're a fiscal sponsor.
So, yeah, okay,
Yes.
so apply for a grant, they didn't give you, but.
Yes.
So, did you explain that to me, not that, what is that?
Yes, so we applied for a grant, and it was like their short film grant that we ended up not getting, and they're a nonprofit production company. They're called From the Heart Productions. And then the president, or she's the vice president, ended up reaching out to me. She's like, we loved your film. I love the idea behind your film. Would you like to do a Zoom with me? And I'd like to help mentor you. So then I ended up talking to her, and she offered us fiscal sponsorship, meaning that she would kind of help follow our project. And we start another stage of basically sponsorship where we're doing another page for donations starting flexibly June 3rd. Flexibly June 3rd. But yeah, it's depending on like a couple, yeah, Friday. Flexibly the day after a wrap day, depending on who we mark for social media and some press things. But flexibly Friday. The page is already made, and they're gonna help us with like virtual Q&As and social media stuff and getting us a distributor and all this stuff down the line. But mainly, the thing that they're so good about is they have so many donors that connect us to other filmmakers, and their network is really good. And so what I found with them so far is you get out of it what you put in. If I'm really communicative and I'm really on top of it, they give a lot back. But if I'm super relaxed and don't really talk a lot, I get nothing out of it. So you have to be very kind of with everything and entertainment. But if you're really in it and you're really passionate, they give a lot back. So that's been really nice.
So that's a possibility, and it's not necessarily a given, but you just had this wonderful opportunity that she reached out afterward and said.
Yeah, she just loved my application,
Yeah.
which was really nice. I did spend a lot of time on that application. I had to write a whole essay to get accepted. We had to send in all these like cover letter, bios for the crew, our budget breakdown, our plan for distribution, which was loose at the time. And then we had to send some like cover art, our social media plan. So it was like all kinds of fun stuff like that. Yeah. But basically just, oh, I have some script too, especially the script. And she just really identified with the story. That was nice.
What's it called?
Positive.
That's
Well, we want to thank Abby definitely for this like really inspiring talk. Thank you. I think you've given us a lot to think about, and not only enjoying your story, but thinking about how we can craft our own journeys as well with that. So thank you so much for sharing today. Thank you.